Bryce Underwood. And after the game, you know, with the benefit of only having notes that were taken during the game, I think we saw a little bit of the whole experience from him. First off, it's a 17-year-old playing college football. He looks like he's at least 2 to 3 years older than that. He looks the part on the field, kind of flicks the ball effortlessly down the field. We were talking Saturday in the box. Some of his most impressive throws were the plays that weren't made, whether it be drops or miscommunications or what have you. But, in a setting like that where the teams are split, you're not really getting a feel for who's on the first team, second team, although we have a pretty good idea. But we saw a little bit of everything, and I'm not going to get too high about some of the highs that we saw, and I'm not going to get too low about, the 2 delay of games or an interception on, a miscommunication down the field or a fumble that he recovered on his own. It was, I just saw more juice at the quarterback position with him alone than anything we saw last year, which is both a referendum on what we saw last year and also, it speaks to the talent that Bryce Underwood has.
Couple beautiful throws, one by each quarterback that I thought could have been caught downfield with better receiver play off the fingertips. I think one was Channing Goodwin, or maybe it was Jamar Browder, and then the other one I think Peyton O'Leary, who would normally pull that in. But they've got to have better receiver play too. But the ball gets there in a hurry, fellas. It reminds you of the J.J. McCarthy throwing balls, right? That boom, you throw it out and the ball is there. It's not taking forever to get there. He made some really good decisions too on passes that they weren't there. So you put it where either only your receiver can catch it or it's going to be incomplete. Yeah, you had the one bad throw. You're going to have a few interceptions with a young guy. He is going to be the starting quarterback. I'll go on record now and say it. There's really not a whole lot of competition. Everybody was talking about Jaden Davis's improvement, and he was 6 of 17 with 2 picks. Both of them really bad picks too. So you're going to live and die with Bryce Underwood. So to me, it was more about watching his protection and the offensive line. And you can tell with some one-on-one matchups how guys are faring. And it was basically what we'd heard during the spring from our sources, that there are a lot of guys that need a lot of work. Left tackle is going to be an issue. So hopefully they give him some help up front. It doesn't look like they're going to get it in the portal at this point, so they're going to have to really improve. But this guy is the real deal. He's going to win a lot of football games here. But what you don't want him to be is that Denard Robinson, right? The guy that everybody comes to see, but you're not winning enough games because you don't have enough help. I think the defense is going to be really, really good. I think at just about every position they're stacked. But Bryce Underwood is, I think he's going to be really good. It's funny. It was funny watching all the rivals on social media rip his numbers without having seen him play. You can tell that this kid's going to be a really good quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, he looked like Bryce Underwood on Saturday. I've seen him play a lot of football, and it was exactly that, translated up to a little bit of a higher level. I thought he played really well. And, they didn't really throw a lot of short passes that would boost those numbers. So he completes less than 50% of his passes, but they were pushing it downfield. Like you said, Anthony, there were a couple passes that could have been caught as well, including the one to Joe Taylor in the end zone that was broken up by Chase Taylor. Taylor on Taylor crime there. That I thought was probably his best throw of the day. So made a lot of plays, didn't get to use his legs other than really the one scramble and a couple times where he got out of the pocket and then threw. I think he's going to get a lot more comfortable on those plays where he has to improvise, that some of those were incompletions when he kind of fire one down the field. But you're going to have your best receivers out there. We'll see how good they are, but you're at least going to have the best guys that Michigan has available to them when he's out there in real games, and he'll have the full offensive line in front of him, all those sorts of things, potentially good run game as well. Really like what the running back showed. So, you have to take everything with a grain of salt in a spring game, but it was a really good first showing, I think, for Bryce Underwood, and excited for the rest of the fan base to see it on Sunday when it airs.
Yeah, still a whole nother week before it does air. And again, yeah, the Joe Taylor one that you just cited, the first thing that comes to mind is, Donovan McCulley probably makes that. It's nothing against Joe Taylor, but he's not going to play wide receiver reps with Bryce Underwood this year, because I think Bryce Underwood is going to be your starter. But I think more than anything else, you just didn't want him to look like his head was spinning out there. And there was a little of that early on, which, again, when you have protection issues and you're going against this Michigan defensive line, even in limited reps at the start of that game, they're going to do that to a lot of people, and especially to a Michigan offense that is still kind of finding its way. But just offensively in general, and we'll move to running backs and such here in a minute. But I felt like it was always going to be kind of a vanilla. These are always vanilla. They're going to keep the ball on the ground. It's actually pretty surprised they let Bryce Underwood throw as much as they did, which people have been asking them to do that with young quarterbacks for years in these spring games. So box check there again. Once it all kind of comes together in fall camp and the ones are repping together, I don't really have a whole lot of concerns here.
No, and it was funny because some of those outs that he threw were like one skippers from Alex Orji last year, if you'll recall, or they took for a long time to get there, or he makes it look effortless. So I have zero concerns. Again, my biggest concern is getting him protection and making sure that he has time to throw. So, and as far as backups go, I guess Jaden Davis must have looked a little bit better than he did last year. Again, the numbers weren't great, but they really need to get Mikey Keene back, in my opinion. And it was good news that, according to Sharon Moore, Mikey Keene is starting to throw.
And some of those passes Bryce made, are just throws that the other quarterbacks last year wouldn't even have tried to make.
Exactly.
Some of the ones in tight windows, and like you mentioned, some of the ones that are a little further, right? They're not necessarily pushing it downfield, but it's far away if you're on one hash and you're going out to the sideline on the other. Just can get the ball. And then, of course, there are some of those, whether it was jitters or whatever you want to call it, I guess, mistakes like the one they're trying to throw the screen to 38 Bryce Wilcox, and he throws it 5 feet over his head or 10 feet over his head. It was like, all right, whatever. It's kind of like a spring game throw. I even consider the pick kind of like just a throw that you see in a spring game where it's like he's probably not going to throw that in a real game. He'd probably just take what he can on the ground, but he just lofts it up there, and probably a miscommunication with the receiver. Tevis Metcalf picks it off, but I thought he was good. And Jaden Davis, really, I'd seen more of Bryce Underwood play football than Jaden Davis in my life, and got to see some of him in that game. And it's clear, right? I think the long windup allows defensive backs to anticipate what he's going to do, or even D linemen. They can, bat the ball down, get a tip at the line of scrimmage. We saw that a couple times. Jeremiah Lowe was able to really read that out route that he had his first pick on, and then picked him off again later in the game. So a concern there, but if Mikey Keene's getting healthier quicker and they potentially explore bringing in a transfer portal quarterback, you'd feel a little bit better about the depth there, because, I think Jaden Davis as a redshirt freshman does not really look ready. If you needed him to start a game, that would be a big concern.
And a better receiver than Bryce Wilcox certainly would have caught the one on the sideline, right?
I don't know about that.
I just kidding. I think it was about 30 feet over his head.
We didn't come here today to slander Bryce Wilcox. So
I never even heard of him before yesterday.
If he was 14 feet tall.
If he was 14 feet tall, he would have had a shot at it anyway. So there you go.
People are going to get a kick out of that throw. But
yes.
And some people will clip it, right? And it's going to be on
on
Twitter on Sunday.
It'll be a meme.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Good.